Welcome back to Warehouse and Operations as a Career. I'm Marty, and here we are in week 2 of the new decade and part 2 of our New Year, New Career series. Last week we talked about how much work it is to be looking for work. It can be frustrating and time-consuming. A few of us put some thought into what we really wanted to be doing, where we wanted to work, kind of like geographically, or what part of town we wanted to commute to, and what type of industry that we wanted to be in. I heard from a few that were looking strictly based on pay rates. I don't really advise that, but hey, we're putting a plan together so it'll work. Okay, so after we've identified those things, now we're ready to start getting serious about presenting ourselves to companies. We know our value to them, and we're going to get them to feel the same way. So let's get started. We're going to find us a job. I'm an administrator on 2 sites, and I moderate on 3 other job board sites. I'm dealing with 3 different states, so I'm familiar with the different cultures between all of them. I think it is something to mention real quick. Job boards are different from state to state. Some states, I notice, will find companies and agencies post jobs, and applicants respond off of those ads. In other states, job seekers or applicants post, what they're seeking, the pay rate that they're wanting, or the areas or zip codes they're looking for, and recruiters reach out to them. And of course, there is a lot, a whole lot of scams and MLM or multi-level marketing things out there, work from home type stuff that's really clogging up everything too. I laugh every day at a couple of those ads. One of them's for Amazon. It says, Amazon needs work from home employees, must work 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. for $25 an hour. Now, when you go to look at those posters' profile, they have one friend and live out of the country. But you know what? They'll have 200 or 300 people reply with the word interested, and all the poster's going to do is send them a link. We all know it's fake, but I think people are desperately seeking easy work for outrageous pay, so they reply. Anyway, so here's a couple of my thoughts. Number 1, we're looking for work. Clean up our profile. Right or wrong, recruiters are going to go check us out. Every recruiter I've ever spoken with says social media is their first stop. Now, not necessarily that decisions are going to be made solely on our feed's content, but let's be honest. Our feeds are worded like they are to project our personalities like we want them to. It may not be the real us, but it's what we want to project. When we're looking for work, make it look like that, at least until we have the job. Number 2, read the advertisement. If it has listed a phone number, an address of where to apply, don't just reply with the word interested. My suggestion is to call the number, introduce yourself, and tell them that you're interested. If they've listed a link to an online application, fill it out, and then give them a call. Tell the hiring agent we've completed the application and ask what that next step is. If we're lucky enough to have an address to apply, let's get dressed to impress and go out there. Odds are we'll get an interview right there on the spot. Oh, and when I say dress to impress, I mean dress to the position. I don't feel we need to show up in a suit for an order selector position necessarily. But a nice pair of jeans and a presentable t-shirt will be fine, but wear your steel-toe shoes or boots. We know the job requires safety footwear, so let's wear them. I know one recruiter that'll quit listening to any equipment operator if they're wearing flip-flops. Following the directions within the ad is kind of our first test. And please don't engage with any trolls on those sites. Nothing good ever comes from it. They'll push us into saying something we shouldn't, and any prospective hiring agent will just go ahead and dismiss us. And please, please do not ask about drug test and background requirements through your replies. Most of the time, we know that equipment operators are going to have a pre-employment drug screening. No reason to throw out there, to a recruiter that we're not really interested in taking one. And in my experience, backgrounds can always be worked with. We need to get to the interview first and then just explain it to the hiring agent. You'll be surprised how hard they'll work for us once they know our skills and our previous accomplishments. Remember, they get paid by putting us to work. After we've shown them we're the perfect candidate, they'll be a bit more incentivized to work with our background. But if we've thrown it out there in our social media reply, they have no reason to speak with us. Does that kind of make sense? Now, I know it's easier to say I don't want to waste my time, my gas, etc. if they're going to run my background or I'm going to have to take a drug test. But if we want a job, we'll need to go speak with them. I think it's important to remember they have 100 applicants applying for every posting or job. With a clean social media feed and properly using those social media feeds, we can get to that application or phone interview. That's what we're after. Next, let's talk about our resume for a minute. We need one. In my opinion, it doesn't have to be a $150 formal listing of our worth, though. Of course, the more professional position we're seeking, the more professional it'll need to be, but for most all non-management warehouse positions, keeping it simple is perfectly fine. There are like 354 free templates in Microsoft Office, and most all libraries have 8 or 10 free fill-in-the-blank ones that'll work just fine for us. I was speaking with 3 or 4 different resume writers about coming on today's episode, but, I figured why have them hawk their wares to us? Seriously, don't stress over your resume, but do have one. If you get stuck, email us. I'll get you some help putting something together. Our work history is just not enough these days. Sometimes our resume may be seen by 3 or 4 individuals within the company before a hiring decision is actually made. Okay, now let's talk about what I feel we dread the most sometimes. That phone interview and that face-to-face with the hiring agent. We're fortunate to have 2 recruiters here with us today, and they're going to share some tips and secrets of what they're looking for and how we can help them help us. I'm really excited to welcome a first-time guest onto the show today. Yesenia is a regional recruiter for a large sourcing company covering the states of Nevada and Arizona. I've known Yesenia for about 4 or 5 years now, and gosh, I couldn't count the number of hires that she's made. She maintains a staff of around 200 spread between the states. Yesenia, thanks for visiting here with us today at WAOC. How you been?
I'm good. How are you doing, Marty?
Absolutely fabulous. We're really honored that you've taken a few minutes to be with us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
We've talked a little today about cleaning up our social media feeds and how important a resume is, even if it's a bit plain maybe. Is that good or bad advice?
Well, I personally think it depends on what you describe as cleaning up. I would say the resume has to be honest, with the accurate and most current information for the applicant. I believe that it actually should be upfront, short and sweet, because I believe it'll be most when you have the person in front of you to ask them the questions versus reading the paper. The paper will give us information, but I think it's best when we have the candidate or the person in front of you face to face.
Yesenia, we're nervous when we answer the phone and it's a recruiter on the other end. What can we do, or how do you like us to act? How can we help you help us?
Well, I have all the resources I need. It's basically up to the recruiter, myself, to search proactively for the candidate. You got to have a critical eye to identify that the person has experience, that we're well-rounded of environment where we're going to put the employee, that we have the information. It's not always easy to recruit, but basically it'll be based on experience, work history. As long as we have all the current and updated information and we're confident enough to let the applicant know and ask them the questions that they need to answer in order for us to see if they will make the fit.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And we were talking a little bit earlier today about how, if we get that cold call from a recruiter, because y'all are just kind of calling us, to do a phone interview. If we're driving or we're babysitting the kids or something, do you feel it's okay for us to kind of explain our situation and ask if you can call back later or if we can call you back later so we can really pay attention to the interview?
I think you can give them some information, but if the call is going to be a little uncomfortable or the noise or not be able to understand, it'll be best to have all of the information at the right time where the person will be able to hear and understand it without having any distractions.
I agree, because that's so important. Our goal is to get that face-to-face interview with you. And, we just want to make sure we're doing what's right. So that face-to-face interview, that doesn't necessarily mean we have the job just because we get to come talk to you, right?
Correct. Yes. I think the applicant has to be prepared as well. We have to see that they have the experience. We might have some tricky questions for them to see how clear or accurate they are position that they apply for. So having them in person, we can ask them, see body language, see how eager, see if they are enthusiastic, if they want to be part of their company, and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. I know personality is really important. And although we're nervous as applicants, we've got to sell ourselves. So, we're kind of committing to you what we're going to do. Earlier this evening, we were talking a lot about commitment. And, is there anything that you can think of? Of course, we know we have to be on time and we should dress for the interview, kind of dress towards the position. What about bringing things with us? Are there any particular paperworks or anything that we need to be prepared for that we may not just think of all the time?
Well, now with all the new updated equipment as far as like cell phones and apps and stuff like that, one of the main things would be that they have a phone, so we are able to communicate with them. If the employee or the company has apps, applications that they need to download, that's one thing that they should be able to know, because now everything's so current and up to date. It's just basically you can obtain it on your phone. For example, if we have the system now, it's a system where they can just go in there, log on. Maybe 20% of people now still don't use phones, or they don't want to update themselves and use the current stuff. So we got to kind of prepare them and let them know we have a website where you have to apply. It'll be best if you download your app and you can go from there, and it'll be much easier for employees. Oh,
you make a good point. We haven't even thought of today. All the information we really need is probably on our cell phones, isn't it? So I guess that's one thing that we didn't even talk about earlier today. That's a good point. Well, Yesenia, those are some great tips. And I really want to thank you again for taking just a few minutes with our group here at WAOC. We really appreciate your time. Any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the group?
Just have questions ready. We should not lack preparation. We should be ready and prepared when we're ready to capture those good employees that will benefit our company.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. And we'd love to have you on the show again sometime, Yesenia.
Oh, thank you.
And you may remember John G. He's been on several shows with us. I don't know of a more talented individual in our ops world. John's ran small and large warehouse crews, overseen safety processes, and done more recruiting than most people I know. He's presently recruiting for an entirely different field, working in the hospitality and hotel arena, and I thought he'd bring a lot to the table for us today. John, how have you been, sir? I miss hearing from you all the time.
Fantastic, and thank you for having me. It's good to be back on WAOC. On behalf of all your listeners, I wanted to say thank you. Week in and week out, we've got a place to go to consistently talk about warehouse, and then maybe our jobs there. And whether you're on the dock or in transportation, WAOC is your home away from work for good information about your career choice and warehouse operations. And today, I was hoping to bring you some real-world information about how to be prepared for getting the warehouse job that works best for you. Last week, you talked about the importance of being prepared, whether or not you're prepared for beginning your job search or not. There are some basics that you will need. And before we get into specifics, you will need three things that I feel like are important to any job. So number one is a good attitude. Life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. So having a good attitude will get you farther in life than anything else. Number 2, commitment. Commit yourself to being the best employee you can be. Commit to being reliable. Being at work every day, companies need employees who are reliable. And you can be the best forklift driver, loader, receiver, or any position. Be the best one on the planet. But if you miss a day of work every 2 weeks, you'll fail any company's attendance policy, and they won't be able to use you. So commit to being at work every day. And if you do, you can write your own ticket. And number 3, be flexible. Companies have certain things that they need to get done every day. Some are special projects, and the employees who can be counted on for the special projects are the ones who get promoted. The ones who are willing to work on their days off or after hours are the ones who get considered for advancement. Good attitude, commitment, and being flexible are the keys to getting promoted and to better pay.
Those are all really good points, John. And what I took out of that is something we've been talking about over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and that's that commitment word. We have to be committed to our job, don't we?
Well, we really do. And if you're talking about a first-time warehouse position, you've got to be willing to start at the bottom and work your way up. Listen, if you're committed and have a good attitude, nothing will move you farther up than having those 2 things.
Very good points. I'll tell you what, let's start. I got 2 questions. Well, 2 questions to start with. How can we help you help us on the phone interview and then that face-to-face sit-down, sir?
Well, have some certain parameters that you know that you're going to work with. First, after you know how far you're willing to drive and the hours you're willing to work, just be sure not to say yes to any position that you can't commit to the requirements on a long-term basis. If you do commit to a position that you can't fulfill, you're asking for problems later, and you might jeopardize any future opportunities that might come your way. Number 2, be sure that you know what pay you're willing to accept. Know the minimum pay that you can work for. Taking a position based on future raises that are not associated with that position will just lead to frustration. Pay and opportunities for advancement are great questions for your recruiter. Don't be afraid to ask about the money. Keep in mind that your recruiter does not set the rate of pay. This is determined by the position and the company, as are the benefits and vacation and sick days. Being flexible means being willing to start at the bottom and to work your way up.
Very good points. And there again, I heard that commitment word.
Very important. I feel like if you commit to something and stick to it, then your employer will know that you can be counted on.
And how about our social media, John? How important is that it's clean?
Well, don't fool yourself into thinking that employers will not see your social media accounts, because they will. They look at those accounts and they see what kind of lifestyle you're living to see if you'll be a good representative for the company. They want to be sure that you're not sending a bad message or sending a negative image through your social media account.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Every recruiter I have talked to, right or wrong, that's the first place they go after that phone interview.
No, they really do. And so you've got to count on that. So you need to go through that and clean it up and be sure you don't have any images on there that you don't want your employer to see.
Very good. Resume or no resume, John? Are they important?
I think resumes are critical, I would say. They've got to be able to speak for you after you leave. And if you've got an old phone number, or give them a 3-year-old resume that doesn't list the experience that's relevant to the job that you're applying for, then you're just going to show them after you leave that you do not have the experience that they're looking for. So be sure it's current and be sure that you have good contact information. Remember that it needs to be current. If you don't show that critical piece of information that they're looking for, which is that job experience, then you're just going to show them that you're not the person for the job.
Agreed. You know, John, we mentioned a few minutes ago about that face-to-face interview. Now, we know we need to be on time, and you as a recruiter, you know we're kind of nervous when we show up. How can we help you, again, I guess, help us?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with the being on time. Punctuality is everything. Just remember, you only get one chance to make a first impression. Also, you want to dress for the interview. You don't want to go to a warehouse position interview wearing flip-flops. Not only does that show that you're not prepared, but that you don't really know how to dress for an interview. So be sure and dress your best.
Very good points. What about paperwork? What do we need to bring with us? I always encourage everybody to bring a copy of your resume and maybe some notes that you've made on it to where we can talk through our strong points and really sell you on ourselves. What else do we need to bring?
Well, I would say the type of resume is important. I always recommend that applicants bring a resume tailored for the position that you're applying for. If you give them a 3-year-old resume that doesn't show your experience for the field that you're applying for, you're just going to, after you leave, be finding that you don't have the experience. So be sure that it's current and tailor make it for that position. Also, be sure that you have a valid phone number and be sure that your voicemail is set up. I can't tell you the number of times I go to contact an applicant and can't reach them or their voicemail is not set up. If I can't reach you, I can't hire you.
Outstanding, and what a way to end it. John, we really appreciate you visiting with us here again at WAOC, and we're going to give you a call to come back on the show, man.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to next time.
Thank you for your time. In the spirit of the new year and a new decade, I saw 2 quotes this week. The first one stated, "Whatever you are not changing, you are not choosing." And where's the other one? Oh, here it is. "Yes, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it." I'm going to carry both of those with me all year long. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I'd love to seek out answers to any questions you may have. Ask away at host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com. You know we love getting mail around here. We've added an Instagram feed. You can find us at WAOC Podcast. Check us out there as well as our Facebook and Twitter feeds, where, as you know, you can find us using that little @ WHSEANDOPS. Until next week, be safe in all you do, and best wishes to you on your new job and career search.